Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, presented by AT&T 5G. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, the grinder, MLS Today, live streams, 4 hours. We get all the same takes, but with a fresh spin. Charlie Davies here as well. What's up, boys? Thursday is the take show, we've decided.
Wiebe, I promise you, I have a back pocket of takes that I save for once a week, and that's when Chuck D's on. So don't worry.
just to get Charlie's reaction. Hopefully we didn't spend them all in the pre-show meeting, which is always a blast and was an absolute blast today as well. We'll try to mix some of that spice into this show. Coming up today from the AT&T 5G virtual studios, of course, breaking down everything happened on Tuesday and Wednesday night as Heineken Rivalry Week rolled on. Of course, it keeps on rolling over into the weekend. Saturday, Canadian Clasique, Montreal-Toronto. You have Dallas-Austin as well. So the Copa Tejas just keeps going. Dave, I'm with you. I don't know if we've discussed this, but I also realized recently
that it's not day.
Correct. It was a big realization for me. Sunday, 3 games back-to-back on national TV. Atlanta-Orlando on ABC, New York-NYC on ESPN, the New York Derby, and then Hell is Real, Columbus-Cincinnati on FS1. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk about what we're looking forward to most at the end of the show, but there is too much to talk about otherwise.
But
let's start with a good piece of mail. Oh, no, go ahead.
Can I say, you said that you wish that everyone could be a part of the rundown meeting. I think, are we going to potentially do a live show, and then the whole thing will be like a rundown meeting with people?
Oh, look at this. This is good production. We're going to talk about All-Star in just a second.
Yes.
We'll be in the Twin Cities. We'll get there. Don't worry about it. We'll be in the Twin Cities. Blackheart is it's a special place for a lot of people in the soccer community, and it's a great place to do content. And they have speaker system already set up. It's ready to go. It's across the street from Allianz. Everybody knows about it. It's part of the community already.
There's also Ethiopian food around the corner.
Bingo. We are working hard. And there's also the light rail, I believe, that comes up right outside. So that's extra helpful. We're working on organizing a live show with the 3 of us and special guests on the night of the Sunday before the MLS All-Star game.
Nice.
So keep that in your back pocket. Put it in your schedule. It is both tentative but also likely to happen. And then we're also, and this I think more likely to happen, or both are pretty likely, but this is more likely on the scale, after the All-Star game, the Brew Pub at Allianz. We're going to do a show there as well, wrapping up the game, the week, having some drinks with everybody. It should be a really, really good time. We're really looking forward to going to All-Star.
Last year it was us waiting for Heineken's at a bar with Jorge Campos in flip-flops.
Yes,
so
I remember
this one will be
now.
a bit more official then. I like that.
Yeah, he wears those everywhere, man. He doesn't. He was wearing a suit as well, if I remember correctly. Let's start with this one, and Charlie, I'll throw it to you. Tom Bogert, I need an in-depth breakdown of your viewing tactics for midweek chaos to kick off the show. How many screens? How many screens with volume? How much Twitter time? Can you blink? How do you stay hydrated? Charlie, walk us through your setup here in the wood-grained abode that you reside in.
I have 3 screens. And a TV, and so, you kind of just try and flip and flop. It's hard to just focus on one game, although I really liked watching the Galaxy San Jose match. DC and the Crew I was really interested in. Chicago, that was a shock to me. Not so much the 2-0 win. It was more how poor TFC were. And they've been searching for this striker that maybe they always had, So I think it was a super encouraging performance from Chicago, one that I don't think too many saw coming.
John Duran, we got him on the rundown. Talking about him a bit. I have also, a 42-inch TV above, so sort of hanging off the wall. I have 2 very large monitors that flank my laptop monitor. Mm-hmm. So I will put the game I'm focused on most either on the big one or on the middle monitor. I'll have one of my monitors strictly for like communications, comms. So I'll have Twitter going there. I'll have
communication is
He said
just
comms.
tweeting the entire time. Oh, what do you do? What should I cook for dinner? I'm so tired of dinner. How do I get out of here? Oh, no.
Instant replay takes. So speaking of dinner, if you have any hints, get at me. @_ Wiebe, always stuck on that front, especially for 4 and 2-year-olds. But Twitter, text, the group chat, etc. And then I'll have other games on multi-boxes spread throughout. And then I have one game I'm focused on. I glance in on the others, and if there's goals scored, I go to them. I have our Clip Pro program up, which means I can go look at any play and any game at any time. So I'm skipping through, looking at instant replay plays, looking at, tracking different players' touches, etc., which is all to say that I have close to no idea what's going on and try to catch up on the morning after. Dave, you were watching live last night. I saw BWP was on.
Yeah, we got lucky last night because we did the live show. So someone being Steve Kern and Anders, who everyone knows, they set up a special feed for us. So we had a 6-box for the first half of the games and then a 4-box for the second half of the games. So I had a game on TV, second screen with the 6-box, and then I had either one game that I was also watching or I had our show up. We had Bradley Wright Phillips on. He was incredible, as you'd expect. Awesome person, great stories, really interesting sort of just hear his evolution from, maybe I'll go to the U.S. on vacation to maybe I'll do this trial to now I play to he didn't like the way people talk about MLS from England now. Like, he has evolved completely over the course of the time, and I think he had interesting views on a lot of things. He sort of said he didn't like going All-Star, like things that you don't hear a lot of times. So it was a really good time chatting with him and hearing
any other
him
real talk from him. I heard he outed the player who Tyler Adams fought in the locker room.
He did. He told us it was Felipe, which curveball for everyone involved. He said that it was like Tyler early on, and they came out of a film session, I think, and Felipe was like ribbing him the whole time. And then all of a sudden he said everyone turns, and Tyler has him in a headlock down on the ground. Was not going to take it. I think at the time he was 16. So showed, I think, a little bit of his fight and his tenacity. But he talked a lot about sort of the players he's played against, played with, and what he sees in the league. And, we talk to Charlie all the time. As a human being who finds it uncomfortable to shoot the ball or try and ever take anyone on, I always enjoy hearing Charlie and Brad and Wando and guys we have on talk about goal scoring and finishing and how it works and how they affect a team. Because everyone knows the striker, what was it that Kalen told us, can never be a leader? Was that what?
I was listening to that too, and I was like,
right?
I'm like, of course strikers have to be selfish, but don't tell me they can't be leaders.
Thank you. I mean, Charlie, where were you on Monday? I needed you.
I was listening to the podcast in my car, and I'm thinking to myself, if I'm on this show right now, I'm going ballistic. and I'm going to be like, Kalen, how dare you? How dare you? You're an attacking player. You're telling me you couldn't be a leader or a captain? I mean, think about Thierry Henry. That's just one player.
That's what I said.
One example.
Speaking out of turn, huh?
My man was leading. He was leading at Arsenal. He's leading at Red Bulls. How can we say that strikers can't be leaders? Robbie Keane? I mean, come on.
We got to get, by the way, Kevin Cabral in these Chuck D, BWP, Wando finishing meetings because he's looking about as lost as you, Dave, when it comes to entering the final third. Okay, let's talk All-Star. August 10th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, Allianz Field. You can watch ESPN, Univision in the U.S., TSN, TVA Sports in Canada, and in 190 countries internationally. The All-Star roster is out. We know the names. It is a mix of players from the fan vote, which I guess not only fans would have to be the ones that voted there.
No, it's media and players too.
Yeah, anybody can vote as well, and there were ballots as well. But I'm saying, the fan vote's the public one, and then there's the media and the players, and then obviously you have the coaches' selections from Adrian Heath, who is the coach of this thing, and then you have 2 commissioners' picks as well. We have the group. Anything stand out to you on this group, Dave? Any names jump off the board? Any vibes? Any just kind of feels for the team that will take on the Liga MX All-Stars for the second year running?
I'd say my first reaction looking through was obviously it's a great team, great players, and I think there's the excitement about some of the stars to play against the Liga MX stars, right? I think the first name you notice is Carlos Vela, Chicharito, Raul Ruiz-Diaz, guys who either have come from Liga MX or played for the Mexican national team and their chance to sort of play in that big moment. It's tough because we're about to talk about who deserved to be on there and who didn't. There are more than 26 players in this league that I think are in this conversation. There are guys, especially at some of the key positions, where it's like you could tell me either made it and I think it's right. So that's one of the hardest parts when you come down to it. Also, shout out to Ilya Sanchez for being the only D-mid, so he's going to get a full 90 in this game.
If we want to just start with some of the ones that jumped off the page to me as like, I don't know if I would have made that particular selection. Jordan Morris and Darlington Nagbe were coaches' selections, and I don't want to sit here and say that Adrian Heath is like in a lair somewhere, drinking a glass of white, like I'm the only one who gets to make these selections. Whoa! No. There's got to be other input going into it. But I just felt like Jordan Morris, among all the attacking players in the league this year, might not have been the one that I would have chose as a winger. We can get to our snubs here in just a second. And Darlington Nagbe is a wonderful player, but the Crew haven't had a great season. He's had a fine season, but if I'm going to go with a box-to-box midfielder, you got Alex Ring out there for the Supporters Shield leading my Supporters Shield leading Austin FC. You've got, I guess you could kind of slot Georgie in there if you want to go more attacking minded. Sifu is a pretty obvious one there. So I don't know. That one didn't make a ton of sense to me. And then I didn't think Julian Araujo has been the best right back in the league so far. We'll maybe talk through who some of the snubs are there. But Charlie, what do you think of this team?
Yeah,
okay.
I do think DeAndre Yedlin is, and
yes,
he got in there as well. So I thought that's
a good call. Yeah, that's a good call. Charlie, what do you think? You've been in the running, or have aspired to be an all-star in the past. You've seen guys have it announced, whether it be at training or in videos with their brother, like Jesus Ferreira. I mean, this is a big content opportunity these days. What does being an all-star mean to players?
Well, it's I think it's just a certification, and you feel certified. You feel validated for your performances. It's one of those things where you feel that everyone's really pleased with what you've been able to do for the club. Not only the players, but the fans and the supporters. And so typically when you get that nod as being selected as an all-star, it gives you that belief that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and that people appreciate what you've been able to do for your team and that you've stood out. So I think for a lot of players, it's, I am an all-star, and you like it because you feel like you've deserved it and you earned it. Whereas there are other players who feel like they have deserved it and earned it, and they don't see their name on the list. And that hurts. I'll tell you right now, that stings for a lot of players because you feel like, man, this is a popularity contest, or that person didn't. It's so easy to say, oh, that person didn't deserve it, or that person, is just based on name and not performance. So there's a lot that can go into it. But we've also seen players who get snubbed who say, hey, I just can control what I can control, and that's my performances for my team and helping my team win, and what will be will be. So it's definitely something where you are very appreciative of the fact if you are an all-star. But there are cases where you think players may take it for granted, especially the ones who get selected and opt not to play. And you're like, man, if I was selected, I'm playing. I'd be glad to play, And so I think there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of emotions in terms of when you're selected or if you just miss out. But ultimately, it is one of those things that you feel like you're respected for it. You also get that respect.
And the bonus is not nothing. I'm just going to throw in bonuses
as well. Yep.
So I agree with what you said, Charlie. The one thing I would say is, so there's the popularity contest thing. The other thing I think that makes it really tough to do this is trying to divide competitions. So like I look at this and you say Jordan Morris. So now there are clearly people who are thinking about CCL, which isn't wrong, but it's not technically what you're supposed to be picked on. And I saw the ballot or, the team come out, and my first thought on Walker Zimmerman was he got voted on because of his national team performances. He has not been bad for Nashville.
And reputation.
And reputation,
his place
right.
sort of in the ecosystem. That goes to popularity contest, sort of, and also the politics of all this as well. Because, it's not like there's no like purity measurement. People are like, hey, where's Justin Glad? Where's this guy? And I'm like, hey, look, I understand. I respect it. Those guys have been great this year. But this isn't, the All-Star game isn't, and I don't personally think it should be in 100% of the cases. In a certain amount of cases, yes. Just like completely rank and file of like who are the best players this season in MLS.
I disagree with you completely.
I mean,
if you're going to do it,
man. It's an exhibition.
But but Charlie just talked about what it means and what you've built it up as what it means for the players who play and they work. Listen, if you want to say, oh, we're going to do a summer friendly series, an exhibition series where we all come together, we have meetings, we have events, and then we watch a soccer game and not connect it to performance, then that's what you're doing.
Yeah, this is truly an honor, Weeby. Like
I'm not disagreeing.
Every player
so take
wants
Carlos
to be
Vela off the
considered
team
an
then.
all-star.
Are you going to take Carlos Vela off the team right now? Do you think Carlos Vela should not be in this team?
No, but Carlos Vela has a shout because he is one of the best players and has performed at that level.
Do you think he deserves it more than other attacking players that could be there? Do you think he deserves it more than Georgie?
No, if you're Georgie,
no, but you know why he's here. You know why he's in the team because it's 80% in this selection. You know it is. It's like 80, 85, 90%.
Weeby,
who deserves it, and then there's also like who do you want to see play the Liga MX All Stars?
No, but there's also layers to it. There's not a single person in this league that will tell you Carlos Vela should not be an all-star based off of skill. That's not a question.
Same on Walker. That's the same on Walker.
That's not a question. But the game should be who deserves it for their play this year and with what they've been able to put on the field. If you're telling me Carlos Vela should be an all-star based on that over other players, I would tell you no. Even though he's one of my favorite players to watch, and even though he is arguably the best player in this league when he's fully fit and engaged. However,
Agreed.
I'm telling you right now, based off of performances, he should not be in this team.
And yet you understand why he is. And that's why I'm saying it's 80, 85%, 90. Give me that number of this guy deserves it. It's all about his performance on the field, but nothing else. But you cannot tell me that you're not going to have the other 10%, which is ultimately this is an exhibition as well.
No.
Well, I want to see Carlos.
I'll also tell you this. There's not a single person on this list that'll say, Carlos Vela's on this roster. Like, he doesn't deserve to be. There's not a single person because they do know that he's that good. You know, it's almost as if Zlatan Ibrahimovic was still in the league, and this is just a hypothetical, and he was, he's maybe missed a few games and has been out of form. If he's called in the All-Star game, you think people are going to be like, Zlatan shouldn't be there? No.
I got people yelling at me about Walker Zimmerman, why he shouldn't be there. And that's the same exact point as Zlatan on a different level.
That's a way different level.
So there's a few different things.
He's the 3-time defender of the year, bro.
So for starters, he won some of those defenders of the year purely on the same reason that we're talking about him being in the All-Star. Again, world elite center back in MLS, the best center back in the U.S. men's national team pool right now. Not knocking him, but we had this conversation last year. I don't think anyone on our show picked him as defender of the year and he won it, right? So that already, you can't then use chicken and the egg and then use that. Also, Carlos Vela has 6 goals and 7 assists this year. We're not talking about picking Alan Pulido, who has not played a single game. Like, Carlos Vela is arguably an all-star this year. That is okay. Do you believe in him or Georgie, who also is injured, and that's unfortunate?
Let's come to a mutual.
I don't want anything mutual with you. I don't want to be on your team.
There's a mutual agreement here that the players that are in this team and that play in the game and that represent MLS should be the players performing at the highest level in the league. But there are also other considerations.
Yes.
That come into play.
Of course.
But there should not be.
So then we're on the same exact page.
You said that you don't.
Page.
You say that you agree with that, and I disagree with that.
Yeah. Okay. That's the fact. It's either you agree with it or you disagree with it. But that is the fact. Politics, of course, play a role in selecting this all-star team.
All right. Well, we've had. Now we're a little riled up here.
Yeah, I feel good. Let's keep going.
On that note, who are the biggest snubs? I sort of threw out some names.
I'll throw the biggest snub. By far, it's Jeremy Ebobisse right now, just off of production. This is your top goal scorer, American goal scorer in the league, and he's not an all-star. And then if you want to go off of supporter shield rankings and teams that deserve probably more players than they have, it's very hard for me that one of these two players did not make it considering what they've given to the club, and that's Diego Fagundes and Alexander Ring. Both of them have a really good argument, and if I'm going to just take out one player in particular who's made a real difference for their club, and that's Lewis Morgan. So if I'm looking at a winger, Lewis Morgan has been phenomenal for Red Bulls this season, and I think he really has a strong shout. Defensive midfielders, Goss, you talked about it. Ilie Sanchez is the only one. Well, Jose Martinez with Philadelphia, they're third in the supporter shield standings. He is so important. He's vital to the Union's success. How is he not included in this list. And then,
well, it might have something to do with a couple birds that got released into the wild, so to speak.
But that's part of the whole.
I know, that's why I would want him to be there, Charlie. We're gonna play Liga MX. We need a pot stir. We need somebody in central midfield protecting the rest of our guys who we're not gonna tell them to defend much. You go and you attack. We need Jose Martinez in there, just effing things up and playing mind games and getting a little bit rough and like having fun with the crowd and talking and he deserves it.
I
pure defensive midfield.
100%.
He is the best pure defensive, defense first midfielder in the league by far. Now,
interesting.
Dave,
when I tried to put him on our top 5 league, our top 5 preseason, you guys all fought back. It was a whole thing.
The relitigation.
We had to backdoor it in. Okay,
oh my God.
I'm
I feel like an attorney right now. Like, well, President says that you ruled at this time. Give me some snubs because Charlie's gonna take them all if we let him. Charlie's just running through our whole list right now.
I'm kind of fine with that. I respect that. Listen, Charlie knows a good list.
I gave a good list.
You gave a great list, and I agree.
Here's one you didn't name. Jack Elliott.
I thought that I was about to.
Yeah, but then you were passing on the responsibility.
I was literally about to say,
he just dunked on you guys.
If I question Walker Zimmerman, I have to put other center backs.
Okay,
they would be both of Philly center backs. And to Weeby's little thing, Jakob Glesnes is probably a better center back and a better soccer player. Jack Elliott, in his ability to play both center back and D-mid at times this year, has been maybe the better player for them. Both of them deserve to be in this conversation. I think not only with Walker Zimmerman, but with Aaron Long as well. Although I think Aaron Long's been phenomenal this season. They deserve to be in that convo. I think we mentioned Abobasi, but we didn't mention Brandon Vasquez, or did we?
Yep. We did not, but he scored again last night as well.
Right, so he's on 10 goals. Tati leads the Golden Boot on 12. And then Ferreira, Abobasi, Druisi, they're all on 11. And Brandon Vasquez keeping it up right behind there at 10, and did it without Brenner for a ton of time to start this year. Has been a little bit more quiet, but I think
that's the elevation of Brenner.
Yeah,
but I did it without Brenner. I'm like,
hey, Brenner had another nice assist. I mean, he actually should have had a goal, but new signing Sergio decided to shoot, and Sergio Santos decided to shoot, and he was wide open for a tap, and you could see him being like, "Oh, I don't know if you know, but I am back. I'm the guy here now with Vasquez, so you should have slipped that to me, and don't be selfish."
So
but I think in terms of other players who have a decent shout, Maxime Crepeau has been incredible for LAFC this year. Definitely should have. I think he should have been in the mix. And then Tyler Magno, 5 goals, 8 assists.
Yeah.
What's been impressive about Tyler Magno is not only his hold-up play, but this season he's completing passes. He has 82% of his passes have been completed. That's phenomenal for an attacking player. So if I'm looking at one player who's continued to grow, it's really Tyler Magno. He's been a strong performer for New York City FC this year. He has a great shout. And then
Sifu probably falls in that category as well.
Yeah, I think he's just a little
his game.
Up his game, but I think he's just a little short in terms of being in this squad, just because, 5 goals, 4 assists, that's pretty good, but 14 starts, I just think compared to the other players, probably needed, probably a couple more performances and starts to get into this team.
Georgie probably suffers from that as well. Georgie Mihailovic was an MVP candidate for a long time here, and probably still is, but a little bit on the outside looking in. That goes back to
everyone was shouting about MVP candidate.
I know,
I told everybody he's good.
It's tough,
but he's not Driussi. He's not Carlos Gil. He's not Hani Mukhtar. He is not Carlos Vela.
Why not?
What do you mean? Why not?
Yeah.
He's just not as good as those players. And those players are actually not only better than him in just the talent that they have, but they're playing better than him for the most part. So, yeah, he
8 goals, 5 assists for the best team in the Eastern Conference.
For me, he is not. And in this team, still Kai Wagner and Andre Blake, those are your best players for Philadelphia. And you could argue that, like you said, Glesnes or Elliott should be in this team.
point is, there's a lot of really good players in MLS, a lot of great seasons happening. Literally impossible to honor them all with all-star appearances. But we'll talk through them. Here, Dave,
Can I mention
one more?
I want to mention two more that we're never going to get voted, but should get mentioned. I think Frankie Amaya, if you're talking about deeper center mids with the way he's played for Red Bulls, what he's done this year. And I voted for Brad Stuver as my goalkeeper. I think statistically, he's been the second most effective goalkeeper. He has some of the best feet, and his team's on the top of the Western Conference. So those were two that I probably didn't get enough buzz around them, but are also in this, what are we going to say, 45, 50 player pool that all should be around it.
How about that, Charlie? How about your would never make it, but you like them? You wish there was a world in which they might make it.
Diego Fagundes, 4 goals, 8 assists for the Supporter Shield, leading Austin FC. 20 games started, or 19 games started, 87% passing percentage. He has been great for them with his set pieces, with just getting in between the lines.
Last night.
You know, I think he's been one player that has elevated his game under Josh Wolf. And we saw flashes with the Revolution, and you know, it was always like, he's just missing the consistency part or missing the physicality part. And it seems like in this system with Josh Wolf, he's really flourishing.
I would go in this category back to the Union, and just because I didn't think their Araujo one was as reflective of performance, I think Nathan Harriel has been the best defensive right back in the league this year by a pretty wide margin. And he is just, I would never make it. He's just not going to make a team like this at this stage in his career, and that's not a knock on him at all. He just doesn't have that profile yet. And if you're going to pick from the Union, you'll pick other players, but I want to keep shouting out Nathan Harriel for what has been a really, really impressive season. Pushing Mbaizo out of that spot, claiming it as his own, and then just being a rock for Philly defensively. They don't ask him to do as much as they ask Kai Wagner to do on that left side. So I think Kai's the more complete player, but defensively, dude, he's got that dog in him, so to speak. How about commish picks? We had Sean Johnson and Kamal Miller. Sean Johnson, I get. That's your most valuable player of MLS Cup last year. He's probably going to the World Cup. Just on performance and quality this year, I think he's been very, very good. Kamal Miller, a little bit of a head scratcher from the commissioner. But I understand it as well. I go back to the All-Star game. Like, Montreal's been very good. Kamal has been good. I think we could pick out some center backs that we might choose over him. But as far as a left-sided center back, he fills a hole in your roster as well. And he's a Canadian international going to the World Cup. Just sort of feel like that makes sense. But if you were commissioner for a day, would you be tempted to go straight up star power? Would you be tempted to say, like, Ache or Gareth Bale? Or would you say, no, I will not be tempted by the Gareth Bales of the world?
Clearly I won't, because I stood on my soapbox and yelled about
I had this was a good question.
Deserving.
This was a good question before you really put your cards on the table.
Yeah.
We have seen that before with like Steven Gerrard, etc. I like where the commissioner went with his picks this year. Even if I could argue them, I think a lot of people, whoever chooses them, they're going to be able to argue.
Here would be my ideal scenario. Is that you can pick a separate pool of players for the skills challenge than the All-Star game. So you would bring them for the skills challenge and the All-Star event, but you're not anointing them All-Stars over players who have played all season.
Okay. We'll see what happens.
I like that idea, Goss. Well
That's
done.
like
Tati
dunk contest and three-point shootout.
Yeah.
I mean,
well
the
done.
NBA All-Star game is a huge party, right? A lot of people show up that weren't a part of it. Yeah. We'll see what happens, because it's like Tati might get sold. So if Tati's sold, maybe us yelling about Abobasi and Vasquez being snubs is no longer relevant, because one of those guys gets pulled in. Now, there are guys that'll be hurt, knock on wood, hopefully not, but that inevitably happens. Guys that have to pull out for various reasons. So we'll see what happens. Charlie, what's your 11? As it's currently constructed, what's your 11? And then we'll move on to midweek action and dig through some of these games.
Yes. Andre Blake in goal.
Okay.
Kai Wagner is the left back. Alexander Collins and Walker Zimmerman as your center backs, and DeAndre Yedlin as your right back. Ilie Sanchez as your lone defensive midfielder. Then Sebastian Driussi and Carlos Heel across from him. And then up top, the front three, Jesus Ferreira, Tati Castellanos, and Hani Mukhtar.
I like it. How are you playing Jesus? Is he more underlying? Are you going to have Tati more on the wing? with Jesus dropping in, which will give space for
would,
Hani and Tati to get up.
No,
channels.
I'd play Tati as the 9 and Jesus on the left, and Jesus can always come inside, and because that's how he plays at FC Dallas, and that's how he played with Ricardo Pepi. He played underneath, so that's a role he's familiar with, and it's the All-Star game, so it's not like you need him to defend. It's more of a okay, let's run around, let's get him on, get him closer to goal next to Tati. So I think that would be a phenomenal front three, and then you bring in Paul Arriola, Carlos Vela, and Chicharito.
Yeah, I think I'm down for that. Going to Minnesota, of course, on August 10th for this All-Star game. A ton of activities before, including, as I mentioned, Sunday. We think at Blackheart, we're working on getting that locked down, and then Wednesday after the game, come have a beer with us at the Brew Pub at Allianz Field. What, Charlie? You and I are going to host.
You're not going to pick that apart? Goss, you're okay with that 11 too?
Charlie, I've agreed with everything you've ever said on this show.
You guys are my boys. Let's go.
Big win for Charlie. A big win for Charlie and I. We are co-hosting the All-Star Game concert on Monday night.
Khalid. I love Khalid.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I don't know what they're going to have us do. I guess we might just get out there and are you excited? Yeah, you don't want to see us? Here's Khalid. That's probably all it is. But we'll have some beverages and hang out, have a nice night. Summer in Minnesota is about as good as it gets. But I did a little bit of this last year in LA, which was awesome as well. But you have a better concert hosting resume than I do, Charlie.
Yeah. I got to host one, kick it off during my DC United days in 2011, and it was for Weezer. And that was epic. I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to be on stage with, thousands of people in attendance. And Rivers Cuomo, the lead singer for Weezer, is a huge U.S. men's national team fan. So that was pretty special.
So spoilers, I hosted a Weezer concert earlier this year. And
really?
He didn't mention that to me because we didn't talk because I'm not a former national team player who has any recognition.
Why'd you keep that out?
Dave, we'll just pull you up on stage with us in
I love a good pickup concert hosting,
Yeah.
If I'm walking down the street, someone's randomly going to host a concert, I'll jump in,
Yeah, just get a few touches, get a couple words on the mic. You have skills challenge on Tuesday. That's going to be a blast as well. I think I'm hosting something trivia related on that day as well. But there's a bevy of activities at the MLS All-Star festivities in the Twin Cities coming up at the beginning of August. Should be a really good time. All right, let's do Heineken Rivalry Week and some midweek action. We told you how we watched it. Hope you had a great time on Wednesday night. Hope you stayed up for the Cali Clasico because the last 20-25 minutes were pretty wild. I mean, the first 25 were just the Galaxy getting smoked. But LA at home just lost to LAFC. They lose another rivalry game 3-2 to the Quakes, who got 3 in the first half. Gene Voborov. Gene, I'm so sorry. I definitely mispronounced that, and I apologize to you. Got in my DMs. Says, good evening, longtime listener. Really like the show. Do you think a bit more time can be devoted to what's going on with the Quakes, where they are, the progress they're making, etc.? Because it seems like even when they win, they barely get a mention. Thank you. Gene compliments the show. He's very polite. Gene, you get your wish. What did you think of this game last night, Dave?
I just think you start with San Jose playing like it was a big game and having that edge and that hustle and that grit to the way they played against a Galaxy team that needed it. I think it's really promising that San Jose was able to do that, and I think it speaks a lot to Alex Cavello and the way he's put this group together. He's settled the team. If you look back over the last 4 or 5 games, it's pretty much been the same 11, rotating through a few pieces in central midfield. And so now you've gone from complete unknown all the time for players to know their role, how they fit into the team, what the coach sees in them. And so I think you are starting to see growth in a lot of these players. The biggest example is Benji Kikanovic on the left side. He stepped in because Cade Cowell was away with the national team. He's got assists in back-to-back games now. He's able to break. He drew a PK as well. He's able to break lines. The pass to Bobasi against TFC was gorgeous, breaking lines into his feet to set him up for the goal. And then in this one, him pulling you wide allows Marcus Lopez, who's one of the best attacking left backs, to come inside and create that goal. So we saw Marie come in from the right side as well. So it feels like with the stability, you're starting to see the talent of these players emerge, and they're able to find moments to be special. Now, I don't want to see them lock in because I think part of this year, even though they can make a playoff push, is what do we have in Useni Buddha? Who is Cade Cowell? Nico Tsarkis, Cruz Medina, all these young players that they have. I'd like to see them sort of know what they have going into next year, where it sounds like they'll have a permanent head coach, but to settle the team down. And so now when you bring those young players in, they're coming into something established, I think makes it a lot more promising.
Before we get to that permanent head coach, Landon Donovan linked with this job. Charlie, I want you to give me an idea of what you've seen from Jeremy Ebobisse this year. I thought he did he's a really introspective, interesting guy, and obviously we had him on the show earlier this year. I think Dave and Kaylin, I want to say, or maybe just you, Dave, had that conversation with him. But he had a great interview with Charlie Boehm, and I just thought his perspective was really good. You know, both on the national team, on what he was trying to accomplish, on what he could gain from Matias Almeida, even what was, I'm sure, a chaotic time for him, because he mentioned he thought he was probably going to Europe. There were all these, deals sort of like heading toward a finish line. Okay, am I going to be transferred permanently? Am I going to go on loan? What's going to happen here to me? Okay, now all of a sudden I'm being traded to San Jose into a situation I wasn't exactly prepared for mentally, and boom, has thrived.
Where did you
put him at striker, he scores goals. We knew that, and it's just being confirmed.
In terms of European interest, where did you think where he was heading?
Probably a Belgium. Probably, he's going somewhere where you could develop and maybe make another jump.
And he was
something like that.
He was born in France, right? So
has there been like a club that was linked to him? Was there like
I can't remember any of the specifics. If I'm thinking back to the Timbers days, I think it was around when he was called up to the national team.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like Belgium, France, something like that.
Okay. I would say this season, his ability to run in behind has gotten better. I think his hold-up play as a 9 has improved. Overall, I think he's improved as a player. I think what still limits him at times is when the ball's at his feet and he's facing a defender, not necessarily with his back to goal. I think his movement and ability, his first touch sometimes lets him down. I'd say those are the two biggest things when you're watching him play. If you're saying, hey, Jeremy Ebobisse, successful in MLS and successful with the San Jose Earthquakes, but is he ready for that jump with the U.S. men's national team? I think that's what's holding him back is his first touch and when the ball's at his feet and he's facing 1v1 with a defender at times, it's not as clean and fluid as you'd like. But overall, his play has really improved with San Jose, and I think that comes with trust, also with minutes. He wasn't getting consistent minutes in that one position, as he talked about in that article with Portland. He was on the wing. He was up top. Maybe he felt like he was getting into a groove, and then next thing you know, he's on the bench or he's on the wing. It was never something that you felt confident about. And as a striker, it's very difficult to get into a rhythm. San Jose, they're playing him. Whether he has a bad game, whether it's an okay game, he knows he's going to be playing. And when you have that as a player on the field, it allows you not to think about the little things, the small mistakes, because you feel that, with this mistake, I know the coach isn't going to play me next game, or he's going to use that as an excuse instead of being able to play with freedom. And I think that's where we're starting to see Jeremy Ebobisse really enjoy the game, because now he doesn't play with that fear of, this might be my last start or my last time to play at this position.
And fear, and then I think, and I could be reading this wrong, it could be exactly what you're saying, but it also feels like not being deferential to the players around you. Valeri, Blanco, the pieces around him in Portland, if he wheels off into the right channel and it's a tight angle but he has a shot, or does he pull it back and get it to Valeri or lay it off for Blanco? And then I think you saw a lot of his goals in Portland were far post runs, near post runs, pullbacks, all of that in the flow of the game from those players, where this season you're seeing him square his body up anytime he's around the box. And when he gets those passes played in front of him, I agree with Charlie, creating his own space, creating his own shooting, maybe not as good, but he's ready to finish on his first touch, and he's been efficient and he's been clean with it. And I don't know that he'd even take those shots in Portland, because I don't know that that was his role or his responsibility. So both knowing he won't get pulled out, but also I think accepting that star status on this team, and not every player is going to elevate themselves to that, and he has, so it's a credit to him. I think that's been a huge difference that I've seen over the course of this season.
he talked in the interview about, one thing about that interview and about Abobasi in general is I don't feel any sort of like rancor from him or like regret or like, hey, this is the way it should have happened, at least publicly. He might have that privately, but he doesn't bring it out publicly. One of the things he was talking about was playing on the wing and understanding the sort of service that the players around him liked, the areas that he was able to get into as a winger and what that meant as far as movement from a striker. I think one of the areas that he's really improved, and again, it's probably just with time, is sort of understanding where ball's here, second pass, third pass, I want to be here, and how to set up that run, how to set up that moment, how to set up the angle for the teammates around him to put him in the right spot to score. And when he's had the opportunities, you're right, Charlie, he's been efficient, and he's been decisive, and that's all you're asking for from a player in that position. And I thought his answer on USMNT was super mature. Do you think you can get in? And he basically was like, nah, I don't think so. I'm going to do everything I can in San Jose to be the best I can in San Jose. And if something else happens out of my control, awesome. I'm having a great time watching those guys. I know them from the U20s, the 23s, from being in camp. They're doing a kick-ass job. I love to see it. That is the best possible attitude he can have and the best way he can put himself in position to get the call from Greg. We'll see if he can get there, but another big game from him and a huge game for the Quakes. Okay, all right, we're back from our hydration break here. I don't know if you have noticed that. Probably didn't if you're listening to the podcast. Maybe on YouTube, but Dave was dabbing. There was a lot of sweating happening
I am not
here.
allowed to turn on air or fan when we're doing our stuff because it's too loud. And I live on the top floor of an old building in New York City, and it is currently 91 degrees in this room. That is what the thermostat says.
So if you think you're podcasting in tougher conditions,
yeah, if you think the Houston Dynamo have it bad, come play an away game here. I dare you.
1,000%. All right, Charlie claims he called this. We talked about permanent managers. There's some guy named, I don't know, Landon Donovan, who is, according to all the reporting out there, Jeff Carlisle, I think, started this, and then everybody else is confirming in the conversation in interviews for the Quakes manager job. Charlie, would you like to have your victory lap? Or
yes.
Are you going to be magnanimous? Are you going to be magnanimous in this moment?
Yes, I'm going to be very magnanimous. I am going to say that this happened last year when we were discussing potential candidates for San Jose and who would be a great candidate. I knew that Landon Donovan, having played for San Jose, his love for California, his love for that club, would have been a perfect stepping stone for him, considering that's what he wants to do. He wants to be a manager. So in terms of San Jose and the direction that they could go in, it would make sense for them to make that hire. Now, is it, in terms of style of play and, what Landon Donovan hopes to get out of this experience, I think what you look at if you're San Jose is we have a player who knows the league very well, knows our city, has that connection already that could, ultimately make this a success.
Sure.
So you give it. I'm not shocked at all that he's in conversations and in interviewing and probably the lead candidate to take over as manager.
You played with him. I talked with Herc about it yesterday. He played with him as well. What's your take on what Landon will be like as a manager, sort of what you saw as a teammate of his that sort of progresses over to the type of manager he'll be?
To be clear, he is a manager with San Diego Loyal. I mean, we all know that, but we're talking about as an MLS manager here.
Well, I think everyone has seen a snapshot of what he looks like as a manager with the San Diego Loyal. So it's not that it's his first job. What I would say is just in knowing Landon, he is very candid. He speaks his mind. He's honest. So I think as a player, you respect that. You respect a coach, manager who's going to be honest with you and not tell you, things that are nice to hear, but that's not how he necessarily feels. So I think just knowing how Landon is, he's upfront, he's honest, and that's what you have to respect. In terms of tactics, I'm not so sure I know how he will play with the San Jose Earthquakes team. If he'll play in the 4-2-3-1 or if he'll play in a 4-3-3 or 4-4-2, I'm not sure what his long-term plan is, because that could completely change from the San Diego Loyal to San Jose Earthquakes. He could have been playing a certain style because of the the players that he had at his disposal, as opposed to, all right, I'm taking over the MLS organization, and I'm also going to have the backing of the owners to go out and get some players, right? That could be a big difference maker, that not only are they going to invest in Landon as the manager, but also invest in the team and make some big signings if there are some players to go out and get.
It seems sort of like, I'm kind of just thinking through San Jose's roster and like flexibility they have. They went out and got Montero, and he's sort of a DP rental, right? I mean, they should have the flexibility
as well.
Yeah, they should have the flexibility coming out of this offseason to make potentially some big moves, and that's never really been their MO. I mean, I think we can all be really clear-eyed about that. But if you're Landon and you're going in there, I also sort of feel like maybe it's a great opportunity for you as well, because a guy like Alex Cavello, you'd think you would keep that guy around, and he'd have all this experience over the course of this year. You know, it was probably a long shot in general for him to get the job, but whether his connections to the academy, which they're trying to build up, and are doing, as we've heard from you many times on this show, Dave, a very good job at doing that. Desire to kind of develop young players out of that part of California. You know, sort of a new outlook on what they can be roster-wise, you hope. This goes back to even what Wayne Rooney is talking Wayne Rooney's talking about, which is like, I'm here and I have a certain profile and I have some freedom, and the ownership says they'll spend. Like, maybe this is sort of a clean slate, fresh start for San Jose, and to do it with a guy like Landon at the helm and give him an opportunity to learn even more on the job, because he's also going to have to learn more on this job. Just because he's done what he's done with Loyal doesn't mean he's fully prepped for this opportunity. Sort of feels like it. I mean, it feels like it fits. Personality, situation, connection from the past, profile. And God, it would be fun. It would be so fun. I want to watch every week Landon Donovan's progression as a manager.
Yeah, no,
up close. Just like I want to see.
It
Wayne
has
Rooney's.
all the elements that you want, especially for a club that, you know, Charlie mentioned he played for, he won with, and has lacked relevancy at times, lacked a figurehead that's not Chris Wondolowski. And so you bring Landon into that market now. He can help promote the team, similar to what Wayne Rooney's going to do for DC. And as you said, it's a club that's rebuilding, sort of in the early stages of this. You bring in a manager who's also in those stages, right? You could sort of grow together would be the ideal spot. And I think when you look at sort of, I think a bit about what Bruce Arena has brought to the Revs, which is like, he has the gravitas to walk in to Jonathan Kraft, but Robert Kraft's office, and say, this is who we need to sign, and you can believe me, you trust me, right? I think Landon Donovan will have some of that as well. So when you ask about San Jose spending and getting the players in, I think Landon has that gravitas to say, like, yep, I stake my name on it. These are the signings we need to make. So it will be worth it. But there are a lot of pieces in place for San Jose. I said this about Houston as well, and I still feel that way when Pat Onstad and then Paulo Nagamura took over. Of, if you go into a roster, as you said, they don't have a ton of long-term contracts that they are stuck on. Really, the only one I see that you question is Nathan. I'm not sure that he's a high-level MLS center back, and I know he's on at least for another year, if not two. But you've got young pieces, you've got domestic pieces, so you've got international roster spots to play with. You've got players who are on your supplemental roster that are giving you good minutes. Like, there's a lot to build there, and there's a lot to build with. But you need someone who has a clear vision that you're following, and that's what they're looking for. And I think that's where you have to figure out what Landon, as Charlie said, what he's going to try and do at the next level.
Prediction. Raise your hand, or I guess this is a podcast, so don't. Say yay if you think Landon Donovan will be the next manager of the San Jose Earthquakes. Charlie? He raised his hand. Okay. I am also going to yay.
He's the MVP trophy's named after him. Of course he's going to get the job.
It just
well, but
feels
Charlie,
like
doesn't it?
The right time and the right fit.
It doesn't come down to will he get the job, because it seemed like RSL wanted to hire him as well. It comes down to then will he
there's
go?
a big difference between there's a big difference between Salt Lake, and no disrespect to Salt Lake. I love Utah.
Salt Lake at that time too, by the way. Salt Lake at that time under that.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
everybody knows what I'm saying.
You got that, but also Landon's a Cali kid. Come on, he's a Cali boy, and he's so familiar with San Jose Earthquakes that it's a perfect opportunity for him to take that next step. And he's had the experience now managing San Diego Loyal, just understanding what that looks like, how to manage players. It gives him a good idea of, you know, how you see players who ultimately you have to develop versus players who you might get in, with a big DP signing and navigating those man management opportunities and those moments where you have to, dig deep from within. And I think Landon's pretty good at taking away his playing career while managing and taking that ego out of it, which is what I've seen with the San Diego Loyal, which is so important to be able to have those conversations without your ego being a part of it. And what you did as a player is so important and vital in connecting to a player, because they don't see it as, oh, he's trying to compare himself and his career and all the titles that he's had to mine.
He's talking down to me.
He's not talking down to me. He's looking at me as an equal, as a friend, as a player, as a coach who wants to help me grow. So yep. I think this is it's a no-brainer for him, and his family are going to be super comfortable in California.
Did you give us a yay or nay?
I did not. I'm on the fence. I don't know.
Give us a yay or nay.
Okay, I'll say nay.
Okay, you need to be on the other side of it.
I'm also playing the odds.
That's fair.
That's
I think it's real fair.
I like that.
This is a yay from my heart. I want to establish that. There's a lot of logic to it too, but it's also a yay straight from the heart. Mm-hmm. My heart says we shouldn't talk about the Galaxy very much here.
Keep going.
They don't deserve for us to talk about them.
No. Play Joveljic. He's got 8 goals and 2 assists and 522. Play him. And Kevin Cabral, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry you just don't know what to do when it comes time to shoot and or pass in high leverage positions. And
what
that's
about
it.
their back line?
Trash.
We said we weren't talking about it, Charlie. Don't get sucked in.
Okay,
all right, I'm done.
We did it.
I'm done. He sucked me in. But I had to mention that. If he's going to start breaking down things, we're back to the same point. Their back line is trash.
Don't talk about Sega Coulibaly on the show. Keep going.
All right, okay, DC 2, Columbus 2. The big storyline here, if you're a Crew fan, is Cucho, and also yelling at my mentions about a certain call in stoppage time that led to Ola Kamara's game-tying goal. But instant replay is out on the MLS YouTube page.
Don't
probably
tell
by
me
now.
why or how.
Check
just
out the
tell
takes
me,
there.
was it the right call?
Charlie and I both agree that we thought it was the right call to let the goal stand.
I agree. Nice. All right.
Let's go.
Right.
But Cucho, 3 goals already.
0 start.
He is stacking them. I know. MLS gone wild. Cucho is the best striker in MLS, and I want the whole dang league to be served an official warning. This is your official warning served straight from MLS gone wild on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Matt B., the Jamaricadian, which I really love that Twitter handle, Matt B. How many goals will Cucho have by the end of the season? He's at 3 in 75 minutes off the bench right now. And where does Zelarayan Cucho rank in the best pairings in MLS? With them both on the field around 75 minutes here. Zelarayan has 4 assists and Cucho has 3 goals. It's a pretty good duo.
I'll say Cucho finishes with 11.
Wow.
Okay.
And in terms of partnerships in this league, that has the potential to be a top one. But let's not forget Gareth Bale and Carlos Vela together. What that could
Charlie, Gareth Bale hasn't even played a game right now. Let me speak for all of Twitter when I tell you.
But I'm just saying what could be. I'm just saying hypothetically.
We've got people talking about him as the best striker. He's never started a game. I think you're allowed to do whatever you want.
We don't even know what kind of player Gareth Bale is. It's a complete mystery. Wait, Charlie, where are you now with Daniel Gazdag? That's you, sorry, Dave. Daniel Gazdag and Julian Carranza. They got a lot of work to do to make up to get on that level. 11 goals. Let's see. Columbus has, if I'm doing my math here, they got 15 games left. 11 feels low to me.
You think
he's already got 3? That's 8 goals in 15 games. I'm gonna say 14.
Okay, fine. You can say whatever you want. He did score those goals, and it doesn't take it away, against the Chicago Fire and DC United, who are the 2 worst teams in the Eastern Conference. Right? So.
Well, don't do Toronto like that. At least, mention Toronto.
So, but he missed that game. They played last week, right before he got there. But I think 11 feels fair. I think 11 feels fair to me. Yeah. And I'm ready to have them in that convo as partnerships. And I said it coming off the first game he played with the way Zelarayan set up Derek Etienne. And then you see it again in this game. There's 2 things that are going to happen. One is their ability to link up together and create is absurd. But then one of them can draw attention. And so then to play Etienne or Luis Diaz or Miguel Berry, whoever else is on the field, because defenders have to track Zelarayan or Cucho when they float to the far post or the other side of the box, that seems that's going to open up the attack just as much as what they're able to do together.
I'm going to throw this comparison out, and people are going to groan. It's a Colombian to a Venezuelan, but he feels a little bit like prime early days Josef Martinez in that first goal, in the sense that he understands sort of where to drift in what will be a transition moment, and then just is more explosive and calmer in those high leverage moments than anybody else on the field, and understands, okay, here's the back post, here's my technique, boom, I hit it. Got that sort of nastiness look to him. The first goal, it may not be vintage Josef, but Josef had those moments where he's like, I'm going to cut inside, I'm going to lash this. I'm going to just hit it.
I disagree.
I can't
remember a Josef goal that looks like that. It looked more like Javinko than Josef. Now, he hit a ton of shots from distance straight down the middle, right, when he was charging at back lines and the center back split. But I can't remember him floating off and coming inside and scoring like that. Now, the second goal, that's pure Josef, right? Get between the center backs, put your body on the line, and then do it so cleanly that the header was unstoppable. That felt a lot like Josef Martinez, and I could see a bit of a similarity as well in the way they move on the field physically, which, when we remember Josef at his peak, was terrorizing defenses because he physically would attack them, right? He would challenge every ball in the air. He would put you on your heels. He would wrestle with you.
More aggressive.
Yeah. And Cucho, it feels like, has a bit of that plus that quality.
Okay. Draw there. DC and Columbus. DC 2-2. What do you think about Rooney? Charlie, we haven't got your Rooney takes here. He had his press conference. He did his thing. Mm-hmm. Family's going to stay over in the UK and travel to meet up with him. If they're good with it, who cares? They're good with it. All good. Right. We have a question here from Dan Murphy. I think it's a good one, and maybe it can kind of get you going on your answer. Wayne Rooney is the latest, and as a DC fan, I can only hope the greatest in a series of high-profile former players who come to MLS with the intention of developing themselves as coaches. Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry, Steve Cherundolo would be other recent names that come to mind. The number of MLS coaches with World Cup experience as players has shot up over the years. Landon Donovan soon, he says, looking at you, San Jose. What is it about MLS that makes it so appealing as a pathway to managing at the highest levels of the sport? Why do you think this is so appealing for Wayne Rooney, and how do you think he's going to do?
Well, similar to how players have now chosen this league to develop and then ultimately make the move to Europe if that's their ultimate goal. And I think Almiron was the one who really kicked that off in terms of a talented player from South America who had opportunities to go to different clubs in different countries and chose Major League Soccer. And I think Tata Martino had a big role in that. However, he was sold to go to the English Premier League and play for Newcastle. That also now was a selling point for Major League Soccer to say, hey, you guys have seen it. We can develop you and still sell you to the top league in the world. So that's not a worry anymore. You can come here to develop. And I think with Patrick Vieira in kind of the same breath, he came here from Manchester City coaching youth and reserves to now coaching New York City FC and really developed a team, a culture, a style of play. So much so that the European team said, oh, Patrick Vieira is an incredible candidate because look at how he's been able to play, have this team play this game and really develop a style. So I think for Wayne Rooney, you're coming to Major League Soccer to get that experience because you don't have the same pressure as you do in Europe because of promotion relegation. You don't have that. So you're going to have much more time here as than you are in Europe, which I also think plays to an advantage for a lot of these coaches where they can tinker, they can try different styles, they can get a good sense of what's going to bring life to this club. And for Wayne Rooney, he's already been there. He knows the supporters. He knows kind of the ins and outs of the league. It's really set up for him to succeed. And if you have the buy-in from the ownership, which he does, then how could you not get behind the Wayne Rooney signing? It's far better than what they have now. I can tell you that. And I'd say it's even better than with Hernan Losada before that signing. Wayne Rooney has an incredible pedigree. If you're talking about a manager who can convince young stars across this globe to come to play for you, probably not a bigger name than Wayne Rooney. And I think what we saw from his management in England for Derby County was he was still able to get that group to play for him. He was able to get that team to believe in him. He was a good manager. He was paying a lot of these guys salaries when the club was bust. I mean, he has a genuine heart. He likes He likes to help players. So I think from that perspective, if you're DC United and a supporter of DC United, and I have obviously a big infatuation with DC United, I love this move because you can't get any worse than where you are right now. And there's a lot of potential, the upside, that if Wayne Rooney is successful at DC United is obviously club changing. So I'm all about it.
Feels like a blank slate in a lot of ways for Wayne, in the same way we were talking about San Jose. They have 2 open DP spots. They're starting to have more talent come through the academy. He did really well with young players at Derby because he had to. They couldn't sign anybody else. They were in administration, and they had basically transfer bans against them, not to mention the points ban. The other thing I think that you go to, and ProRel is a part of it, the quote-unquote less pressure. And I think there will be less pressure than obviously at Derby County, who were fighting for their literal existence. I do think there's something interesting for managers in coming to a place, even if the rules are a little bit difficult for the early days folks who waltz in here to understand, that there is a feeling that on any given day that you could beat any team in this league, and it comes down to how you set your team up, how you manage your team, how you prepare your team, and that there's maybe a little more opportunity there. Whereas I think if you're Wayne, after managing Derby County, it had to get just a little bit, I don't even know what the word would be, just sort of like soul crushing to go into every game thinking like, look at the resource comparison here. Look at the odds against us. And, maybe you can rally around that for a certain amount of time, but like 48 games or whatever they play, that just gets exhausting. Whereas every single week in MLS, he'll believe and he'll know, because he's been a part of it, that like if we set our team up in the right way, if our mentality's right, if our culture's right, if we make a couple good signings and we get some young players through the academy, I've got a chance to win games and play the style I want to play and be on a roughly even playing field with my opponents. And I think that's got to be pretty appealing for him, especially in a developmental sense and a sort of like testing and improving as a manager sense. So, yeah, I think that sums up a lot about why some of these guys get opportunities here. And I hope Wayne Rooney is as successful as he can possibly be. It'd be a great story for MLS, and it'd be a story that DC United, the club, absolutely desperately needs. Jesse Lingard, Dave, they're already throwing that name around. Do you think Wayne will go big name, or do you think he'll be a little bit more under the radar?
I think he should. Like I said this the moment this happened. I was like, well, here's Jesse Lingard. And we don't know how real his interest in coming to Major League Soccer is right now and sort of financially what it would take. But at 29 years old, he'd be an elite attacking player in this league because he's won globally. And I do think that they should make a signing like this. So to me, this is different than Suarez, right? Like Lingard can have more long-term impact. He could be there for 4 or 5 years and play at a high level, where Suarez is, 6 to 12 to 18 months signing. And so I don't think big name for us anymore in MLS should just be one box. I think there's different buckets that can sit in. And my hope would be that DC doesn't treat Rooney like San Jose treated Almeida, which was like, well, here's our DP. We spent the money. We went big. We went with a big name.
Spot
so your hope is they don't do the same. You need the players on the field. Now, in saying that, the pressure on Rooney is, well, Wilfred Nancy has won with Montreal having less resources than a lot of teams. Look at what Robin Fraser did last year with Colorado. So there's pressure on managers in Major League Soccer because, as you said, if you set your team up right, you will get results. But that doesn't mean that the front office or the ownership group can just say, we brought in Rooney, that's enough, and that should be good enough for us to win.
No, absolutely not.
I completely agree with that, 100%. But I think the point being is like he'll be able to focus on the soccer side of it as opposed to the life he's lived at Derby, which was so existential for basically the entirety of that situation. I hope he succeeds. Let's talk about a couple leaders above that level. The guys making decisions on the coaches, etc. Ernst Tanner in kicker versus John Thorrington on the VOBG podcast. Ernst Tanner on Bale and Chiellini coming in on TAM in mid-season. Quote, I feel fooled, especially as both were signed as TAM players in the middle of the season who can only make $1.6 million. That takes some believing. Innocent until proven guilty, of course, says Tanner, but Bale made $38 million before tax playing for Real Madrid. That's a lot. And could have earned many times more in England than his official salary here. Why is he giving up so much? I don't think the market in Europe is that damaged. Thorrington comes back after being asked about it on the VOBG podcast. Any sort of implication that we're doing anything other than what is fully above board is a completely misguided representation and is frankly insulting. Another quote in there is that it's disrespectful. We need, as someone who will let Doyle be like the soccer purist, and I'll be more on the WWE like entertain me side. We need more of this, man. Need more. Need more personality, need more disagreement, need more of it to happen publicly. I loved it. I don't think it's that crazy to figure out why guys like Chiellini and Bale are in MLS and at LAFC. We're talking about Wayne Rooney being a manager. There's a little feeling inside of me that Chiellini is thinking this is a good experiment for him as a player, but also a good experiment to see if this might be a place he wants to start a career as a manager. And I think you'd be insane to think that that's not a consideration for him. And Bale, much less so. Bale came out in his press conference and said, hey, I'd like to be here for as long as possible. I'm building something. Seems like he certainly believes that there's a little bit of like the Beckham tale in it for him to a lesser degree, but also the lifestyle tale that also Wayne Rooney talked about. And to think he'll be a TAM player if he sticks around is naive. He won't be. He'll be a DP going forward. But he's like, cool, this is a great place to prep for the World Cup. Like, it's warm. I mean, Southern California is Shangri-La. Let's like anybody who lives there or has been there understands this. There are drawbacks, but if you haven't been there, go. I mean, you just walk around a little while, feel the sun on your skin, the lack of humidity.
I've never lived in this stratosphere, so maybe I don't know, but is it that unrealistic to think if someone just made $38 million to not do anything, that they're willing to take a pay cut to do a thing they love in a position they want to for 6 months?
As if you have a lot of money being in LA and having the opportunity to invest in things and be involved in business out there and in the US, probably not a bad plan. And to think that his only source of cash is coming from his playing career and not from his investments from his playing career in many other places, I think would be crazy. Look, the back and forth is fun. I encourage it. I encourage it from every GM around the league. If you want to have some public beef, I'm here to talk about it. No doubt about it. Any other thoughts on that one, or just sort of is what it is?
No, I just the last thing I walk away from is, and you said it with LA, right? Obviously, the city has its appeals, the region has its appeal, all that, but also the atmosphere, the environment does. The fans, the stadium, the style of soccer they play. Like, put yourself in a situation for someone to want to do that for you, and then you don't have to complain about what other people do. And I go to this all the time of like, in clubs in MLS when they complain about other clubs getting players to come and whatever. And you see it in the NBA as well. It's like, just if you build it, they will come.
Anders, direct quote, all caps, you sound like delusional LAFC fans right now. Oh God, stop it now. So I'm sure he speaks for many of those listening to the podcast. By the way, the Philly went to Miami and won 2-1, so that should have led off this conversation, at least with the scoreline. Julian Carranza did not start, but he did have his option triggered ahead of the game, $500K, as Tom Bogert reported. That $500K is split over 2 years, 2023 and 2024. So the Philadelphia Union are getting a striker that another team paid like $6 to $8 million for right now for basically nothing because they're going to pay it off in the future. But they also traded Sergio Santos, so probably that allocation money will end up covering this. They would have had to pay the $500K regardless because there was an agreement that if Carranza reached 15 combined goals and assists, which he was approaching, it would be automatically triggered. But they triggered it before this game so he could play against Miami. But again, he didn't start. Didn't matter. They won. And this is the best quote from it. Jim Curtin thanked Ernst Tanner for Julian Carranza, quote, for a striker that someone else paid for. Which is this in a nutshell. That's tough for the former regime there at Inter Miami, but what are you going to do? Austin 3, Houston 1. Top of the Supporters Shield. We've mentioned that a couple times. My guys are really, they're playing well. I can't keep that joke up for too long, so I'll hold back now. Yeah. Anything we want to talk about there? We had Michael Bartolome say, can we talk about Ruben Gabrielson and how big of an impact he's had for Austin? A massive piece defensively. We could wax poetic on Maxi Arruti, who's having an absolutely wonderful season, both as like a, typical Maxi Arruti shoot sort of season, but also as, hey, we're going to push 4 guys up on that back line in transition moments, and Maxi's going to be the one that drops off and helps create. In the build-up play, in the connecting play, he's been really, really good, and it seems like they're going to sign another DP. Emiliano Rigoni Argentine, 29 years old, is at Sao Paulo right now, was a teammate of Driussi's at Zenit. The how is a big question mark. Cecilio Dominguez is still a DP, and he was at the game last night against Houston, having a good time, though not in red and black colors on the bench. Any big thoughts on Austin? I feel like we've given them a ton of time over the last
big thought would be they're
couple months.
First in the league without a DP playing, so they've already brought in Washington Corzo. If they're actually able to get this over the line, it solidifies them as an MLS Cup favorite. Not the only one, but up there. And so I think you're looking at a player in Rigoni who's struggled in Brazil, but before that had some great years, including playing with Driussi at Zenit St. Petersburg, played in Serie A, played in La Liga, played twice for Argentina in 2017, like high pedigree and exactly what they want, which is a winger who wants to come inside and score goals. So it feels like they're putting together the pieces to win now, which is way earlier than we thought it would be, and it's exciting. And I know Gabrielson, he's been really good for them. I think a lot of it has been team shape and structure defensively, of not being as open in bad transition moments, not losing the ball in bad spots, so being ready in their rest defense. But he's been a huge part, and it's been with a rotating cast alongside him. It was Kip Keller to start, then it's been Cascante. He's been hurt. Romagna came in. He got hurt again, had to go out. Cascante came back in, Romagna back. So he's been able to solidify it with pretty much everyone they've put next to him.
You mentioned the lack of a DP playing. That's obviously Cecilio for reasons that are well documented. I would also add that their U22 signings haven't exactly blown the doors off. I mean, Njite, obviously, and Redes, Kolmanic has been better, but those haven't been necessarily impact players. So there's still more room to grow for this Austin team. They're doing a hell of a job. How about John Duran? Yeah, 18 years old, Chuck, 2 goals. Chicago win against Toronto. Can I just read you some Fire fans out here, man? Duran, breakout performance for the Fire, 18 years old. Holding on to what little joy we can, says Tim. Actually held a lead and got a win. We need some love in these dark times. Justin Witt, give Duran, Guti, Gaga, and Mueller from the Fire some love. On a team that has spent big on underperforming DPs, they show that there may be fight left in Chicago.
I agree. And John Duran could be the answer for them, because people talked about his potential, and it was he's athletic, he's big, he makes some good runs, he has pace, but we really hadn't seen it yet until today, until this match, where I was watching him saying, man, this player is a game changer. This is an absolute game changer. Play that man. Use him. Get into the channels. He's strong. He's great finishing. The first near post finish was phenomenal to catch Westberg. Westberg was cheating as well, but just to see the keeper cheating, play at the near post, and then the second one, just absolutely stiff-arming Mavinga, giving him that bigger body. I've been in the gym, continues, and then whips it around him at the near post. Two goals in 16 minutes. I said, well done, John Duran. And the clean sheet, that's massive for this Fire team. I also think there's a correlation between Gaga Slonina finally understanding his path, his future. He made some big saves in this game. Knowing that he's going to Chelsea, most likely, that everything looks like it's agreed upon, that's a big weight off a young player's shoulder. And we saw at the start of the year, he was in phenomenal form. Then all of a sudden, you got the Polish national team asking for you to pledge your allegiance to the country. Then you have all this talk of, are you going to Chelsea? Are you going to Real Madrid? That's a lot of noise for a young player. A lot of noise. And I know we've had him on Extra Time. We're so impressed with how mature he is for his age. But at the end of the day, when you have that much going on behind the scenes, it is very, very difficult to focus. And he lost his focus. And that was evident with a lot of the mistakes he made. Now it looks like he's back into controlling what he can control and focusing on the match at hand. And he had a very strong performance. And I give a lot of credit to the Chicago Fire team, because it's too early to give up and roll over. And if they can play to their strengths, this team can fight back and get yourself into a spot where you are competing.
There's a shot of Malort on the line. Chris Mavinga had a tough one. Chris Mavinga came out and apologized afterwards. We had Chairman Dave hit us up and say, is Chris Mavinga the worst player in MLS? I would encourage you to read what Chris Mavinga put on his social media on Twitter, basically saying, look, I've been going through some really tough times personally. Do I want to play like this? No. Maybe someday I'll talk about it, but I'm trying to work through it. So a good reminder that players can perform badly. We can evaluate that, but we also have to remember there's a human component, as always, in that. Speaking of that component, Carlos Salcedo, mutual contract termination with Toronto. He's going, it seems like, to Juarez, and has had documented family issues that he's had to attend to. That's another open DP spot for any Italian international who would like it. We would like to offer that DP spot right now to just any Italian international that would like to take it.
You'd assume the target list for them is Marco Materazzi, Bonucci, Nesta, Maldini. You'd assume that's probably the list they're starting at, and they'll just run that and see if any of them.
Just whittle from there. Bellotti has been linked. I guess it could happen. Yeah. Atlanta
just to be
too.
clear, if they sign
RSL.
Bellotti, I assume they have to trade Jesus Jimenez, and I do not know what Ayo Akinola's future would be. It would be interesting, but it would be a bizarre turn of events, which is how I would describe the last 6 months for Toronto FC.
Indeed. And maybe the last couple years for Atlanta, who won 2-1 at home against RSL. Joseph was on the bench. We assume rotated, not like related to his comments. Gonzalo Pineda had the quote that I thought summed it up. Today, the best player was the team. His dudeness hit us up and said, Pineda facing all the injuries, facing Araujo out on yellows, starts Joseph on the bench and throws on his brand new Mexican center back in a 3-4-2-1 and pulls out a W against RSL. Why are people calling for his head? And RSL is fading a little bit. They're out of third, but they're still in fourth.
One of the responses would be Atlanta United midweek beat RSL without Justin Glad playing a diamond midfield with Andrew Brody and Nick Beasler, and they were only able to win 2-1 at home. Not saying that that's the reality, but let's just have our patience. I agree, though, that Pineda should be nowhere in question with what they've dealt with. I don't even know how you can judge exactly what he is as a coach.
Cisneros with 2 goals in that game. Cincinnati 2, Vancouver 2. Vancouver come back to get the draw in Cincinnati. Will Hughes is concerned. He says, how many times is FC Cincinnati allowed to blow a lead before we, as fans, should be frustrated? Part of me is thinking, I should count my blessings. This is miles better than last year, and I would add 2 years before that. But 5 draws in 6 is taking its toll. This team clearly has issues seeing a match out. What a champagne problem in Cincinnati, Charlie. It's disappointing. I get it. They should be disappointed, but what a champagne problem. You're muted.
Not necessarily, I would say, because when you watch the Cincinnati team, yes, as bad as they were, you're thinking, just be thankful that you are now amongst, the top Eastern Conference teams. That you
were digging in the
best,
trash,
right?
and now you're eating Chef Boyardee. Like, just enjoy the ravioli.
No, but I love the ambition, because this is how much talent this team has. I mean, Obino Wobodo has been incredible. What a signing. He adds that dynamic they didn't have in the midfield, especially in the press. You've seen a lot of times where he moves forward, he wins the ball off a tackle, and next thing you know, it's one touch forward and the Cincinnati scores. It's been that good. I'll tell you, though, if you're watching this game and you see Dahome's goal in the 82nd minute.
I was just going to say, that is a cascade of errors.
But what's more concerning is the commitment to get back. Watch Blackett. Tyler Blackett is almost at a walk to the box. And I'm sure there are other players, but it's clear in the frame of the picture when you're looking at it from the Cincinnati attacking end, looking back at their goal. He is walking back. That's the big cause for concern if you're Cincinnati, is you could be so much better if you had everyone committed to the 3 points. At that point, everybody should be in the box defending, making sure that things can't break down. And if one player gets beat, you have cover. And Jeff Cameron was on an island. He was on an island and no support. Everyone was walking. Dahome had an easy tap in. That would be the point where you're like, guys, this is the video. Show me who's committed to getting back. So I'm with this Cincinnati team. I love watching them play. It's entertaining. Brenner has turned the corner. That no one should worry about Brenner anymore. He's been fantastic with his passing, with his movement. He was unselfish. He actually should have scored if Sergio Santos wasn't so selfish in that moment.
Man, Sergio Santos
Yeah.
oof,
Come on, Sergio. You're
strays,
new in
man.
the squad. You gotta pass the rock. But I will say, I'm a big fan of Cincinnati and what Pat Noonan has done with this team.
Love the goal from Barrial. Go watch that one. Nice little touch on his thigh, and then a touch to cut the defender. Good finish in a replacement role for Lucho Acosta. Quickly, Minnesota 1, SKC 1. John Manuel asks, can Will Trapp break the yellow card single season record? I think he's on 9 or 10 in 18 games. He's on 10. The record is 14 in a single season. Will Trapp is probably going to be that one.
Congratulations.
Can you tell me who the other cautions leaders single season are all time? Number 1 is incredible. 14 in 22
Kovalenko?
games.
Yeah,
No.
that was going to be my first.
Leonel
guess.
Alvarez.
Oh,
14
wow.
and 22.
Okay, the
Yeah.
enforcer. Don't mess
Yeah.
with the enforcer.
A Chivas player is here from 2012.
Okay,
I
let me
rem-
get it.
I remember this season of yellow cards from.
He is a New Zealand. Oh, Bobby Burr.
No, New
All
Zealand
right.
was a good starting
New
point.
Zealand.
It's not
Andrew
same
Boyd-
team.
Andrew
Tony
Same
Lockton,
teams.
or-
No. Ecuador.
Oh, Osvaldo
Ecuador.
Minda?
Oh,
Osvaldo Minda. We also have Marco Donadel in this one. We have Aurelian Colin and Michael Emanalo also had 13 and 29. So I think Will Trapp's going to set that record. That's interesting.
yeah.
but-
I don't see him as that player.
Yeah, I know.
There
Minnesota
are,
won,
'cause
SKC won.
I did an MLS Today 2 or 3 weeks ago, and when we do Fridays, we do a full weekend preview coming up tomorrow. Tune in live 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitter Spaces, and we do like match availability for the weekend. And there was a game. Nwobodo has been suspended on yellow card accumulation. He had like 5 yellow cards in 9 games all time or something for Cincinnati. The players who are getting 5 and 6 or 7 yellow cards, I think Danny Pereira would have, but then he got the red card, so now he's on 7 yellow cards, but it got pushed off. There are guys racking it up, and I respect that.
Anders says we should move toward rap. I say that we should thank every single person who is listening right now. We love you. We respect you, and we're going
Yes.
to give you a couple more rapid fire ones.
Wait,
Nashville
wait,
1,
wait,
Seattle
wait,
0.
wait.
What's up?
I have to do this first.
Oh my gosh.
No, Sean Jensen, who was a director for the New England Revolution's broadcast
okay.
team for many, many years, sadly passed away yesterday. And I give him so much credit for helping me grow as a broadcaster. And, he suffered a lot. He had a double amputation on his legs. And he was, someone who really fought every day, and he brought a lot of positivity to the broadcast. He had great banter, and he will be missed. So I want to just let everybody know that he really cared about the game and cared about the product, and so he left a really me in a good place from all of his critique, and he will be missed. So
It's a good reminder. Kind of, thank you, Chuck, out of nowhere that all this banter, all this talk, all this arguing that we do about this game that's pretty small stuff. Pretty small stuff. It's a diversion from what is real life and what really matters. And I'm one of those people that says relationships are the first thing that matters, and caring about your fellow person. All right, let's quickly just run through a couple more. Nashville 1, Seattle 0. Hani Mukhtar, the God. Where would Nashville be without Hani Mukhtar?
I don't want to railroad you on that, but I do want to mention Randall Leal's been phenomenal the last 3 games since he came back from injury. I've never seen him play this well in MLS, and he's done it now 3 straight games. He had the long ball to play Sapong in on this one. He was really good even in the last 2 losses, so I want to throw that out there because we kind of do this like, it's only Hani Mukhtar, so we do have to give credit to the other pieces on the team that helped them win.
Feed Hani Mukhtar.
I'm gonna go with you, Weeby. They would be rock bottom. Maybe not rock bottom, but they would not be anywhere near in the playoffs without Hani.
Here's a
Mukhtar.
question that we don't have time for now, but we'll tackle on a future show, and maybe somebody in Nashville or who likes to do MLS research or nerd out on these things can get to us. Is there a better first-year expansion signing, and who would it be?
Oh, that's really specific.
Mm-hmm. The first year of expansion. Got to be like off the jump. You went and signed this guy, Freddie Montero-esque. you might say. So I'll give you at least one.
Would Carlos
to start you
Vela
off.
count
Miguel
as that?
Almiron would obviously be in that one. Joseph Martinez, you could argue.
Carlos
Vela, yeah. So there's some good ones out there, but where would Hani Mukhtar rank? Colorado 1, Orlando 1. I guess this was a MLS Today question, Dave. After a 1-1 Orlando-Colorado draw, Tyler maybe asks, is Colorado the worst best team or the best worst team? And we've asked the same about Orlando. This was like the best worst best.
Yeah, it was, and it was played that way. It was
they drew
actually
it.
fun soccer,
Yeah, they
and they
drew
both,
it.
sort of showed flashes of what they did well, and then they both missed huge opportunities and made some big mistakes as well. Gallese was phenomenal, I think, keeping Orlando in it. Is Colorado the best worst team or the worst best team? They're definitely the worst best team because they're so far down at this point.
Okay. Dallas 1, NYCFC 1. Yeah, look, good win for NYCFC going to Dallas. No Tati, Keaton, no Cayens, no Maxi or Anton. And they changed their formation a little bit, so a big moment for Cushing. Played the kids and won. We have a question about Justin Hack, which we'll get to on a later show, but I think it's time for us to get on out of here, and we'll talk Richie Larea at a later date as well. Could he go to Dallas? That is a big question mark. Or maybe Vancouver, TBD. He needs some playing time. As always, get at us on Twitter. I put out the thread before every show on Mondays and Thursdays. You can watch us on YouTube as well. Charlie's already gone. He's on the phone right now. Deuces, that's the sign. Adios. Stoppage time is over. We'll see you next time. Congratulations, you made it through more than an hour of extra time. That means you love the show, and if you love the show, you probably want more episodes. Click right here for more episodes of Extra Time, and here to subscribe to the MLS YouTube channel. Thanks for following along.